Hey, good evening. And it's not Monday. Hmm, it's Wednesday. So you might notice I'm in a much better outlook. I really do not like Mondays. Oh, thanks, Ox. That's nice. And thank you for being here. Hey, MJ, Autistic Shield. Thank you. Always grateful. Thank you for coming by, and helping out. Ashley, it's good to see you. Liam, Robsky. Always. Hey, T King. Hope you had a great holiday. All of you. Grace. Yes, Monday. I agree, Grace. Mondays is just wrong. They're second Sundays to me. I don't care what anybody says. Like, I have trouble. I don't know what possessed me to put one of my favorite streams on a Monday. Maybe I was just trying to deal with Mondays in general. I don't know, hoping that maybe it would be a better thing. Who knows? Um, but a little bit of insanity. I won't do it again. We'll just keep that one there. That'll be the only one. Okay. Well, thank you all for being patient while I could not actually wrap my head around all of this stuff on Monday. I was participating in Purple Without Oranges marathon relay streams, and I don't regret a single second of it. It went from Christmas Eve here Central Time all the way through Christmas Day up until about 6 or 7 a.m. here in the States, which covered Boxing Day in most of the countries. And it was a wonderful experience, just like last year. Many people coming together, holding space for those that didn't have anything to do or looking for a distraction. Many people celebrate holidays different than most of us, and so a lot of people are alone. And so I was very happy to do it, but I was exhausted, which is why we're here on a Wednesday. I just got up too darn late on Monday to get myself together for y'all. Hey, Mrs. Cassandra, welcome. Yeah. eh, Hi, Tony. Nice to see you here too. And I did have a good holiday, and I hope you all did too. Whatever you did, I hope it was great. And if it wasn't great, I hope you found somebody to talk to about it. And I hope you felt heard regardless of whatever happened over the last few days or for the holidays. I hope you feel heard. I really do. Um, and if not, find somebody who will listen and be heard. Okay. On that, let's get down to business. I have three for you today, and they're cases, if you've been following me, that you're pretty well familiar with. Um, I'll just bring up the first one, the lovely Sarah Boone. Okay. And for those that need a little bit of refresher and just to keep us all on the same track, Sarah Boone, several years ago, is being accused of killing um, her significant other, the man she lived with, she's in a relationship with. Her statement is that they were playing hide and seek. They had a little wine. They were playing some, doing some painting, playing some puzzles, and then they decided to play hide and seek. She says he got into a suitcase. She willingly admitted during interrogation that she's the one who zipped up the suitcase and helped him. She willingly admits to flipping over the suitcase, um, which could lead to it being much more difficult to get out of. She also, during interrogation, the detectives discovered on her cell phone, many of you have seen, I played on the last clip, um, the TikTok footage of her sitting there in the living room. Obviously, her voice sounded a little inebriated, a little disjointed, maybe tired, who knows. She does admit to drinking some wine. He's telling her he needs to get out, and she's saying, "Oh, how does that have feel?" and things like that. It definitely sounded retaliatory. They have a troubled relationship, which I want to talk to you about. The issues here are about abuse, one side versus the other. It looks like they were abusive to each other. Statements from others have said so. Their own statements in a filing from 2018, an arrest I want to show you about, an incident report from the domestic safety. I'm going to read that for you shortly. Well, basically, the reason she's being updated right now is that Sarah Boone, even in her in if you look on Law and Crime, there are some short videos there about. There's a long one about her long interrogation, the 4 hours. Okay, but there's some short ones there too. That can help you understand what the problem is with her. First of all, she keeps writing to the judge complaining about her lawyers. Sarah Boone um is had 6 lawyers, okay? And the seventh one was assigned in July of this year. Her murder case, and yes, it's murder, although Sarah repeatedly says that it wasn't intentional what happened. She is up on full murder, not manslaughter. She's up on murder. They find her interview to be not supportive of no intent. They found her to be contrary in her statements in regards to her feelings towards the situation. And Sarah repeatedly has presented this attitude forwards of just being inconvenienced by all of this. Why doesn't the world understand that this just happened in Sarah feels completely inconvenienced and wants to know why we're all bothering her about this. Okay. And it's become quite offensive to the legal system. She keeps writing to the judge in regards to her lawyers. She's, like I say, she's on her seventh lawyer that started in July. The last letter that we did go over, our last update, we did go over her letter, which I have shown here. Remember, she was complaining about him not talking to her. It'd been 11 weeks since she actually had heard from her lawyer. Now, I have to agree, and so does everybody that I've watched in the legal YouTube about this that has said anything about this. Anyone with anything to do with legal also says, like, that doesn't exactly sound right. Like, it should be. This is a capital murder. This is murder. Okay. And this trial is in January. Like, there should be some contact going on. I mean, here it is November and she hasn't heard from him in 11 weeks. That was problematic. Okay. Seems to be that was the case. I don't know if he was busy or what was going on. We don't know what the reason is. Well, here's the thing. Lo and behold, is this lawyer actually petitioned the court to be released from the case recently. Just recently. He did put let me just take this down and I will show you the letter. Although it's a little blurry, we may not be able to read it in its entirety. Um, this lawyer petitioned to actually be released uh, on the 20th, the 19th, rather. They received this at the court. The 19th of December, he is asking to be released from a murder case that's happening in January. And he says that, yes, I was assigned to her on July 11th of 2022, but due to irreconcilable differences which have aroused between the undersigned, myself, and the client, I cannot properly continue to represent the defendant on this basis. And I hereby request that this is true, and I request to be relieved from this case. Now, he can't be relieved unless the judge agrees. This is definitely going to be another delay in this case for sure. I mean, there's just no doubt about it, right? I mean, how could she possibly get new representation and be ready in January for a murder case? I mean, serious. Like, the consequences here. It would not be fair to Sarah Boone to actually go forward with the case in January if the attorney is relieved. And here's the question that comes to mind to me. Is it fair for her to go forward with this attorney in January against his will, who is not been in contact with her? I would assume that since she complained in November to the judge and the attorney, that there's been very little contact since then, since he wants to be off the case. This is a problem because Sarah is already squawking that she's been in jail for over 2 years and she's not come to trial. Now, granted, they had issues to deal with. We all know that COVID put all of the court system back by X. Uh, Her having 6 different attorneys prior to this one didn't really help the matters because, like, the first one was there for quite some time and then something happened and he bowed out. And then she went through quite a few other ones that either left or she fired based over something. And then this one comes along in July and was appointed. The court appointed him. Okay. And he wants that. They want out. Okay. In the state of Florida, the judge in this Florida case needs to decide whether or not this is actually going to go forward. Now, with this attorney, and if it does go forward, when will it go forward? Now, they had already granted a stay in the case a few times based on attorney going back and forth, but it's been scheduled now, and whether or not it's going to happen is another thing. E- Not exactly, not exactly the best scenario for Sarah. Now, Sarah doesn't get a lot of sympathy from the legal system or anyone speaking legal right now. Well, Sarah's own uh interviews, own testimony, own affidavit kind of clearly says that she knew all that he was in that suitcase. And then her claim is that it's not intentional because she didn't mean anything to happen to him because she just went to sleep. And when she came back down, she was surprised he was still in the case. Although she admits she's the one that zipped him up in the case and she's the one that flipped the case over, the reason that she was arrested after the interview is because that's an unreasonable assumption that you would think he's not in the case anymore when you put him in there and you went upstairs and he was still in there and you flipped the case over, making it more difficult for him to get out. When I say flipped over, I mean he went into the case on the zipper side. She helped zipper it up. How is he going to unzipper it from inside? Okay. And then, just to make it even more difficult, she flipped it over so that even if he did kind of unzip whatever little he could, it is now on the bottom. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Jujubee, yes, let me answer that for you. Yeah, Jujubee, that's a very good question. Um, from what I see, oh, the majority that she didn't, like all of them, including herself, are using irreconcilable differences. No meeting of the minds, not able to represent. It kind of sounds like she's just that she's not getting along with anyone, or she has some idea about how things should go and isn't listening to the legal side of it, what they're thinking. Um, Based on the evidence and everything that's here and what's going on, they may be telling her that she should plead or whatever, and she just adamantly refuses because she consistently says it was not her intent for him to die, and everybody just needs to get over it. It's not her fault. She clearly is going to keep going forward with this, and they're not being, no one really wants to hear it. I mean, that is why the judge denied her bail. That is why, um, her unwillingness to accept that just playing hide and seek is not really going to get her out of this, because whether she wants to realize it or not, whether it's murder, which would be his death with intent, or manslaughter, his death due to an act that they both contributed in here, uh, he's dead, and one of those charges is true about her, regardless of which one, murder or manslaughter. The only thing difference is intent, and they clearly say, based on the videos which we saw of her sitting there taunting him, telling, "How does that feel?" It looked retaliatory. There's an abusive relationship here for sure. And I'm gonna ring. It was on both sides from what the investigators are reporting. Um, they are they are reporting the abuse, and the prosecutor is laying the case out that there was abuse on both sides, and because of that abuse, because she was retaliatory physically in other ways prior to this incident, that it does look like intent was there to get out of the situation, because she does admit, even to during her interview with the detectives, she did admit that there was stuff going on, but that she never pressed charges, and that he never pressed charges. And that's something I want to bring to light here. And if, with your grace, I'm going to read the bottom of an event that happened in 2018 as to why the prosecution is going so hard for murder. Remember, we asked before, like, about this, it being so, we could see that her affect during that TikTok was a bit off, but she does claim that that's the reason that it was because she was drinking. And so, with that coming to light, and the prosecution has a little bit of a problem proving, well, if she was altered, maybe the true intent wasn't there, blah, blah, blah. Maybe she did just fall asleep. But then they got to go back to these incidences that happened between them before. And one of them that is documented from July of 2018 in Florida, between herself and George, who is the deceased boyfriend. And so I'm gonna read this back a little bit to you. On July 25th, and this is the statement on the arrest affidavit for Sarah. Okay. On July 25th of 2018 at 1:52 hours, Detective Zito responded to this number, France Lane, Orlando, in the Tealwood Park Apartments, reference a male kicked a female in the eye. I later determined this to be an aggravated battery by strangulation and battery case, both being dating violence. Upon my arrival, I spoke to Sarah. Sarah verbally stated she was at an unknown bar earlier in the evening when she asked an unknown male for a cigarette. Her boyfriend, George, whose name is George Torres Jr., okay, of 1.5 years at the time, became upset since she was talking to another male and left the bar. They both went back to their residence located at France Lane and continued verbally arguing. Sarah was dragged upstairs by George, and she was kicked in her right eye using his right heel. Sarah was unable to describe how she fell to the ground and or how she was dragged upstairs by George. Sarah refused medical treatment. She refused to write a statement and or sign any dating violence paperwork. And I spoke to Sarah and I spoke to George. George verbally stated that they were both at their residence verbally arguing and have been consuming alcohol. They had been dating for a year and a half and residing together for a year and 2 months. George attempted to go upstairs to avoid Sarah. While George was walking upstairs, Sarah reached towards George's throat using both her hands. Sarah placed both of her hands around George's throat and applied pressure to the extent that George was having difficulty breathing. George was sitting on the steps and started kicking towards Sarah in an attempt to get her off of him. George believes he might have kicked Sarah in her face, but was not sure. George believed that if he did not kick Sarah off of him, she would have made him incapacitated due to being strangled. George refused medical treatment. George also refused to write a statement and or sign any dating violence paperwork. Both Sarah and George stated they have been dating for approximately 1 year and 6 months and residing together for approximately 1 year and 2 months. The left side of George's neck had red markings and small abrasions that are consistent with being strangled. Sarah's right eye is bruised and swollen from receiving an impact. Both Sarah and George allowed this Ramirez Delgado, who was the officer there, to take pictures of their injuries. All right. They later uploaded the pictures to, I think, is to whatever the site is that they use them for evidence. Both Sarah and George received a victim's right booklet with the officer's name and case number along with the photo injunction referral. Due to conflicting statements and injuries on both Sarah and George, the officer was unable to determine who the primary aggressor was. So he states he placed both George and Sarah under lawful arrest and searched. George was placed into the back seat of the patrol car, and Sarah was placed into the back seat of Officer Ramirez Delgado's patrol car. They informed both Sarah and George the charges that are being placed against them, which they stated they understood. Due to both parties refusing to write statements and or signing any domestic violence documents, I was unable to complete a victim's request of confidentiality form, authorizing for release of confidential information form and written statements. Both parties stated they don't want to testify and or prosecute against each other. Both Sarah and George were transported to Orange County Booking and Receiving Center. George was booked and charged for battery for dating violence under the Florida Statute 784.03-15, and Sarah was booked and charged for aggravated battery by strangulation. Dating violence, Florida Statute 784.041-5. Both Sarah and George stated they do not own firearms, and my body worn camera was activated. Okay. So, in light of that, it looks as if there was definitely violence, as you can see in a documented report where they both admit that they have been abusive towards each other. Although the reason that I would be bringing this to you now is because with Sarah stating that there was no intent, it's hard to actually believe there was not intent in my eyes, anyway. And I'm not going to judge her before the trial. However, I could see why they don't want to back off on the charges and they're not offering a very much of a deal. If they are offering a deal, she's not accepting it. And that could be why there's so many lawyers involved, Juju, because she's not accepting her circumstances very well as far as could be done. You know, Tony, that's a good point. I'm going to, with your grace, I'm going to put that one up because let me just find that here. Tony says, it sounds to me that under privileged communications with her lawyer, she may have admitted guilt, but intends to plead not guilty. Lawyers won't defend those cases. You know, that's true. I- she's unless she's saying not guilty with a reason. If she, if there was intent there, that's murder. And she keeps saying that she didn't intend it to happen. Okay, totally. You know, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Welcome. Hey, April. Thank you for joining us. Teresa, it's nice to see you. Anyone else who came in that I missed, I apologize. I'm trying to keep up with the chat and do all of the review. Hey, Renee and me. I just see you up there. But yeah, ask questions as we go. This is a little tricky. Everyone is reporting that they really don't have a lot of sympathy for her right now. In a way, that kind of worries me because we're all becoming very jaded because of this attitude she has. She's got this serious attitude, like we're all the legal system is inconveniencing her in some way, by going by even insinuating that there's anything wrong here. When you look at that interrogation or actual interview, not really an interrogation because it really wasn't aggressive. And I don't like that word, but they call them interrogation rooms, right? Where they have the interviews with the detectives and the suspects prior to her being arrested. They all she did was say there wasn't intended and why are you guys doing this? And like she was a little like, I want to use the word manipulative actually. I want to hear what you guys say. I would ask that some of you like go and look at that and then hmm, I'll post the link later down below to one of the videos that I found the most credible on the whole thing. Because to me, her body language and everything, and the way she was trying to manipulate the situation, take control. To her, what seemed to matter the most is that she had control of the situation. Now, I understand that if all of this has happened, it's an upsetting situation, and it's all you could be a little like you want to get control back. I get that. I mean, I too would feel a little out of sorts. I would want to be knowing what's going on. I would definitely want to know what was expected of me and where we're going. And at the same time, trying to be cooperative and answer questions. But the part about the cooperation thing, I didn't see from her. There was definitely something else going on, and so I'm curious as to what you guys would see. This is just my opinion from looking at it, of course, but it seems like she's not getting a lot of sympathy. And when we're talking about now 7 lawyers, it doesn't seem like they also are agreeing with how she wants to proceed with this. She may not be doing herself any good. She's complaining that everything is taking so long, but she is inadvertently contributing to the reason that everything is taking so long. If you can't get along with your lawyers and move things forward, appropriately, you can't, do this. That's a problem. Is she a victim of the delayed legal system right now? Yes, she is. Is she getting due process? It has been delayed. What is she contributory towards it? It appears to be. It appears to be she is. We want her to get a fair deal, though. We want her in court, getting a fair trial in front of a jury of her peers. Okay, just like she should. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen in January, from what I can predict, because especially if they let this lawyer off. Okay, and I just don't see it going forward in a timely manner. But let me just check the chat for any more questions on these. Liam, that's a good question. I think that is why they're bringing. Let me just put it up so everybody knows what we're talking about here. Uh, Liam asks, I wonder if she wants diminished capacity from intoxication. That would be hard because it was only one bottle of wine. She admits it was opened prior, that she's not even sure that they drank more than a glass or two each. And she admitted the whole time she wasn't drunk. She said repeatedly neither of them were drunk, that she would never let him get in the suitcase if he was drunk. So the interview would then be used against her if she tried that. And that could be, it's a good point, Liam, because that could be one of the bone of contentions between the lawyers, because she may be changing her tune and they know the evidence that's out there already and what she's already stated, and they're trying to say, like, I understand you think you were diminished because you were drinking and you weren't in your right mind, and now that you've had time to think about it, but you've already made all of these other statements, you've already admitted to all of this, so it's really not going to work out. We need to think of something else. And there's like all that tension and pushback. That could be, but the lawyers, of course, because of confidentiality, they're not going to tell us exactly. But a very good point made, you know. Teresa says she also didn't let him out when he was saying that he couldn't breathe. And then she went upstairs and went to sleep. This is true. And there's video evidence that she made herself on her phone while she's taunting him, and he's saying, I'm having trouble breathing, like, Sarah, come on, like, this is enough already. And she's like, well, how do you like it? How does that feel? Like, haha, like, maybe you should think about that next time you're mean to me, and things like this. There was laughing, there was snickering, there was goading, there was taunting. um it was definitely someone who was in control of the situation and enjoying it, the predicament that he was in. Now, maybe she didn't understand the full gravity of the situation. I wouldn't go that far, but there's definitely intent there to leave him in the case. And that is what the prosecution is saying. You had a choice to let him out, and you didn't. Yes, Ox, she filmed it on her cell phone, 2 videos. They're all over TikTok. I had one up on my last video, but the person who had the TikTok got a little pissy about it and wanted it taken down. So I did. Rather than lose my whole video, I cut it out. But I will find one and I will link it in the description for later everybody to go look, so you know exactly what we're talking about. If you're coming to this later, I will add links. My links are walting right now. I did not link like I normally do before. But I will get those on there right after the video, get everything in there, and I will add that for you, Ox, so it's easier to find. There are a couple of videos that actually include the filming all that she did in their little video about it, so that you could see, along with the interrogation or the interview that she did with the detectives. There's one in particular that I think, I can't remember the name of the channel, but I'll link it for you below. It'll be very informative on that issue alone, just on the visuals. She filmed it. She talked through it. It was absolutely, she was putting forward that that this was retaliatory in some nature, you know. And yeah, it's she definitely has not been doing much to keep herself on the straight and narrow about this. But on that, I'm going to move forward to the next one, because I definitely also want to give you an update on Courtney Clenny. Unfortunately, we have a little bit on her. The last time that we spoke about Courtney Clenny, do you guys? Okay, so I'll refresh you with the picture. Courtney, remember Courtney Clenny? She is the OnlyFans model who is being accused of killing her boyfriend here, Tristan. Okay, by what she says, throwing a kitchen knife from 10 feet away that actually stabbed him right into his heart. Like, yeah, she's claiming to be a knife thrower of that preciseness there. They also had a very traumatic relationship as far as abuse back and forth. There are videos on her also attacking him. Okay, seems to be a theme. That's why I said, what a fine mess. These women just like, crying abuse, but then there's all this video evidence of them abusing the men. Um, like Sarah Boone, there is documented a case in Florida of Courtney and Tristan having domestic violence, in that it was indicated that they both were violent towards each other. They were both. Courtney was considered to be the aggressor in that one for physically picking up a drink and throwing it at Tristan's face, um, glass and all. Mm. Yes, those two are the same person, Ox. This is her OnlyFans name is Courtney Taylor, and this is Courtney Clenny. She's been in jail for a while, and the reason we're updating her is because her bail. Last time we spoke, she went through the bail hearing, and we talked about how they said what she spent the money and that she might be a flight risk, and was there actual intent here. And we actually heard from the coroner, and we heard from her father, who was actually doing the finances, and we found that she bought a house and extra, and she really doesn't have a lot of money left. She has some money, but the judge in this case, she did come forward, and they are stating that um she could be a flight risk because she could make money on OnlyFans at any time. And then her defense attorney came back and said, no, she can't because they closed her OnlyFans account. Like OnlyFans, because of this trial, doesn't really want to keep that account open, so she can't just walk out. And they're saying, but there are other ways to do it. I mean, she's got the name, she's got millions of followers, she's made millions of dollars doing it. It's unreasonable to think that she couldn't find another platform and just do it, and that she would be a flight risk based on that. They're also stating, based upon the coroner's testimony during the bail hearing, that it would be very unlikely that the injury from the knife could have been from just throwing it from 10 feet away casually to keep somebody from coming at you. That she'd have to be an expert knife thrower, in really strong and precise, the way that it entered in the injury that was called. They also brought forward the evidence of what we saw in my last video, which was the blood splatter, and that he had been bleeding from some time. There was movement throughout the apartment with the blood. He didn't stay in just one spot. She didn't call 911 right away. Okay. When she did call 911, we could hear him saying he couldn't breathe. He was conscious. He was talking to her. There obviously was quite a delay between the two of them from the knife wound and the bleeding that was going on, that there was more talking and going on. There's some drag marks, like he either dragged himself or she dragged him from one area to the other. There are footprints throughout the blood, all in. When Courtney was brought to the police station for her interview, she was covered in blood. We've seen pictures of that. There's also the interviews also on many of the legal channels of her, and about her expressing, they literally told her he died in the interview room. And there have been body experts who are saying that they are not really pleased with her reaction at all, and they're going at her. Although I don't think that's an exact science, so I'm not going to say that there's anything to that. I'm just saying there's a lot out there in the legal community about not believing her, that she was that distraught about it. That this also could have been retaliatory, and she is the abuser and the aggressor. Well, she deserves a fair trial too. But what's happening right now is that she needs to stay in jail. She has been denied bond because they think there was intent to cause him harm, which caused his death. and she will be facing those charges, and she needs to stay in jail until then. Okay. Um, that's going to be a little bit more away. Um, the Judge Laura Sharon Cruz was the judge in Florida who's denied the bail. In her quote unquote, from the evidence presented during this hearing, the court does not find the defendant's claim of self defense on April 3rd, 2022, credible. There is no dispute that defendant killed the victim in this case. The only factual issue in dispute is whether defendant was acting in self-defense and whether this claim rendered the state's evidence doubtful. Clearly, defendant and victim had a sadly volatile relationship. So she's staying in jail until the trial. The judge did not find her defense credible. Of course, the defense attorney, Larry Prito, who is Ms. Clenny's defense attorney, he literally says that when we come to church, you're going to see that like this is evidence that there was such a horrible relationship going here, and that the evidence you're presenting is very one-sided. You know, that there was more evidence to be provided of how they were both working on it and etc., and that it wasn't all bad, and that she is not the only aggressor. um she earned so much money though on OnlyFans that they're really kind of using that against her, that she'd be a flight risk. Okay. Her father, Kim Clenny, testified at that bail hearing. Remember, we talked about that. That he believed his daughter was the victim of abuse, and that he offered to help with her finances, and also that no one could take advantage of her right now, and did explain where all the money went, and did explain that she does not have millions in the bank account as of now, and would not be a flight risk. But that didn't weigh very heavily with the judge, of course. So they have denied her bail, based on the medical examiner saying that that wound could not have been caused by a knife thrown from the distance that Courtney says she was when she did it, and that it was self-defense, her throwing the knife from 10 feet away to keep him from coming at her. Um, they're saying that couldn't happen that way, and that weighed very heavily in the judge's decision. Um, they told that. Let me see what you guys. An autopsy may be able to show if the wound was from a single blow or multiple thrusts. He did testify to that, and it was a single thrust and not multiple. He did testify to that in the bond hearing, Liam, already, and I'm sure that's going to come back up in the court. But he's saying it had to be of some force and closer to be able to cause the damage that he did. And he did, from her 911 call, they did come and they did take him away. He did not die on the scene. He died later. They did tell her, rather, Courtney Clenny, during the interview that he died. She was at the police station when that happened, and she was booked after that. I would imagine, Mr. and Mrs. says, I would imagine her lawyers would want her to take a plea deal. The fact that she took a video of herself basically kicking. Oh, are you speaking about Sarah Boone? Yes, I would imagine that also. Yes, yes, absolutely. And if you mean about her, about if you do mean about Courtney, they may also want her to take a plea because there's plenty of video and documentation out there of her abuse towards him, which could make it very difficult to say that she is the victim in this case. If anything, they would both be victims. If there is documented abuse from Tristan against Courtney, it would just show that both of them are abusive because they've already shown video. They've already, from her own testimony of how she has pushed him back and aggressively stabbed him. That there was abuse on her part. There was an arrest in Hawaii where are indicating she is the aggressor. The reason I'm putting both of these together is because they're very similar. Sarah Boone's arrest in 2018 with George clearly indicated by the more severe charge that they gave her than he, that they do believe that she was the aggressor, and that the injury she sustained was in self-defense, because he was kicking her away. Now, they were both abusive to each other because they laid hands, but clearly they're thinking that Sarah was the one that laid hands first in that arrest report. And clearly here in Hawaii, they thought the same thing, as an argument that started out and there was drinks that were thrown and stuff, and that he was trying to get away and she was being quite aggressive. Same type of scenario. Um, well, both of them are staying in jail until trial. I don't know when. I don't. Right now, Boone's trial is set for January 23rd, I believe. No, January 30th. And who knows if that's going to go through based on what happens with the judge, whether they let the lawyer off or not. Um, it does sound like it's going to delay things either way. Okay. Same thing here with Sarah, with Courtney rather. She's just been denied bail. I don't know if that's going to add in her decision on whether or not she's going to look for a plea, or what her lawyers are looking. They are claiming self-defense. They are claiming clearly from that hearing, and what they put through in documents is that she was an abused party, that she did not get help from the system. There is another lobby video out there of police coming based on the concierge calling them in because she was upset about something. She's clearly looks altered. They are saying she looks, maybe she was drunk. She's talking about Tristan not living with her anymore, but sleeping in a closet down the hall, like some kind of storage closet, to harass her. And then she's afraid to leave her house, you leave her apartment, to take her dogs out because he's lurking everywhere. And they didn't take her very seriously. Or she said she wanted to know what to do about that. And they said, go to court and get a TRO. Instead of actually taking a report, they didn't file a report. They didn't do anything. Instead of doing anything, instead of going upstairs to look for Tristan to see what was going on, they were just like, just considered her maybe altered and drunk, or they had dealt with her before, because they really kind of poo-pooed the whole thing. And there's video of that out there too, and I would not be surprised that we're going to see that in the court too, that if you're going to claim that you were abused and nobody was helping you and that this was self-defense, that little video there could go both ways. It could show that she's a little off, and she was a little uh, mm, uh, altered at the time, drinking, or altered with some kind of substance, in that perhaps they did take her seriously that. Or it could also look like the indifference of the police officers and the concierge, that this is like happening all the time and nobody really wants to hear it anymore. Who knows? I would like to see how the defense is going to present that one, but I'm sure it's going to come up. What was her reaction to hearing that he died? She clearly was upset. She cried. She put her head down. She held herself. She asked to be, it was kind of strange. She said, "Oh my God," she said, "You're this isn't reality. Are you serious?" She looked stunned, okay? And then she sat back and she turned around and she said, "Can I get a hug? Is that allowed? Like, is someone allowed to hug me? Like, is that a like, can I get that here?" And then the one detective moved up closer and put a hand on her shoulder and said, "It's okay, take a deep breath," or whatever, and tried to like placate her. But it was a stunning statement to me, because like I'm like, I mean, I do understand the sudden loss of a loved one and everything like that, but to just the way it was verbalized, something about it kind of really bothered me. I don't want to look like a hard ass or anything, but it did seem a little like me, 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 me. I don't know. He just died, you know. But all before they told her that that he had passed, that he died during them trying to help him. She was in the interview room alone, and of course the cameras are rolling, and she kept just talking to herself, saying, "That's okay. He's getting treatment. Like, you know what? He's gonna be like, okay, just calm down. Like, okay, they're working on him. That's good. That means everything. Like, they're working on him. That's good. I mean, And then she would say, well, they're working on him and everything. Oh, so he didn't need major surgery. That's great. Like, she was hanging on little details. It did seem that she was a little frantic as to his condition and everything. And I would not say that there wasn't concern there for him. because she did have an appropriate reaction that way as far as concerned. I don't know if I would call them experts, Liam. There's all these people, these people that claim to read body language. There are a lot of them out there speaking on it. I don't know if we would say they were experts or whether that science is something that we can really count on. I'm not sure, but there are plenty of people speaking on it, the body language for both of them during their interviews. And you can catch those on many of the channels. I will link a couple. I'll link I'll link both of the ones that did the body language also when I do the update when we're finished speaking. But I do want to go just a little bit longer because I have one more. I want to tell you a little bit more about Alex Murdaugh, what's been going on with him the last month. His trial's coming up January 23rd, okay, in Colton County or in South Carolina. Well, the middle of the month, right before the holiday, Alex got another charge. He got another indictment. Like, this is more than 100 charges on this man now, okay? I don't know how many indictments, but well over 100 financial charges only. Just financial charges. But now it's tax evasion. He made millions and millions of dollars and didn't pay taxes. And the state attorney general is filing suit for $487,000 in back paid taxes, millions of dollars in unreported income. They're all every group you can think of looking into it, from the federal government all over the state and the county. Everybody's checking, looking into it. Um, oh gosh. It was the Carolina State grand jury that actually issued 9 counts around the I guess it was the 14th or the 16th of December. 9 counts for willful attempt to evade or defeat a tax. This ex-lawyer should have known better. I mean, he's not only facing this murder, but now he's got all of these financial charges. He failed to report approximately $7 million of income tax through illegal acts during the years 2011 through 2019, thereby causing state tax liability up to the amount of $486,000. All right. With this latest grand jury round, he faces 19 indictments containing 99 charges for schemes to defraud victims of more than $8 million. The state grand jury investigation is being conducted by, and this is what I mean by everybody being involved: the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, the South Carolina Attorney General's Office, South Carolina Department of Revenue, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the United States Attorney's Office. But the case will be prosecuted by the South Carolina Attorney General's Office. Okay. Murdaugh is still being held in the Alvin Glen Detention Center in Richland County, although Colleton County will be actually holding the trial. He is still there based on the murder charges in the death of his wife Maggie and their son Paul. Okay, in regards to that trial, not actually these financial trials, but in regards to the murder trial, there was some news because some of the motions put forth by the defense were upheld by the court. The court did say that the prosecutors needed to come up with what they thought the motive was. So recently we have seen reporting that the prosecution is stating that Alex Murdaugh's motive for murder is clearly to avoid this financial mess that he was in, to throw helter skelter, so somehow interfere with evidence that was in regards to this financial spider web that he had going on that was collapsing all around him and just coming apart at the seams. That somehow or another these murders are in regards to that, like somehow related to that, although they're not clearly saying what. Okay. Now, the defense obviously says, well, why would you put yourself in the middle of a murder trial to get out of financial fraud? Like, that's silly. Well, not if you thought you were going to get away with it. And Alex hasn't been thinking clearly for quite some time, has he? I mean, we've got 19 indictments for all of this stuff that a lawyer definitely knows they're not going to get away with all this financial fraud. He knew better. There's no doubt this man didn't know better. He just altered to the point where he's just trying catch up, and he's just trying to one thing leading to another, to another, to another, to try to get out of this mess that he's got himself in financially, and it's snowballing all over the place. So why not murder to help? Why not? I mean, if I was the prosecution, I'm like, makes sense to me. It does. I mean, but I understand the jury not really going. I mean, not the jury, but the defense team actually not going for it and actually pushing back. Okay. Um. Yeah. Let me find it. I did have something better on that. So, yep, that was at the pretrial hearing that was in the beginning of December. Okay. Um. Here's the statement from the prosecution that Murdaugh killed his wife and son to gain sympathy and escape the accountability for his string of financial crimes. Okay, and of course, Murdaugh's lawyers are rejecting that motive and questioning why would he shift a financial investigation away from himself in order to avoid scrutiny, only to put himself right in the middle of a murder investigation, which has much more penalty. Okay, there's not white collar crime there. There's like go away for life and possibly death row. Okay. But that's another thing. The state prosecutors just recently, around the 20th, I believe, the 19th or 20th, came a statement from the state prosecutors that they are not going to go for the death penalty. They will be seeking life in prison without parole in that double murder trial, um, allowing Murdaugh to actually avoid the death penalty if convicted. Okay. Um, in That's where we're at with that, along with on the 16th, he got that other, tax evasion, 9 more counts of tax evasion, added to his indictment list, which is now well over 100, more than 100 charges. Okay. And, you know, besides the 7 that they found during these counts, there's over 14 million over 9 years that he made and misappropriated by stealing from his own law firm, stealing from clients, do, drug dealing. Remember when he kind of got somebody to kind of shoot at him to just try to get at all of that? Well, I just don't know. This gets so convoluted. But anyway, Curtis Edward Smith, is the gentleman that was involved in the drug oriented part of this whole story. Um, Alex is his admitted addict and was addicted and had gone through some therapies and all, and some of this could be due to that, but he just couldn't get out of it anyway. Um, you know, in June of 2022, they were both indicted of criminal conspiracy and narcotics offenses, and Smith was also indicted on multiple drug charges. They are they're they were accused of conspiring to purchase and distribute oxycodone in Colleton County, starting in October of 2013, all the way through 2021. Okay, and just to update, remember we did finally get the disbarment of Murdaugh. You would have thought that would have happened faster, but it didn't actually go through till July 13th of 2022. Okay. Um, and that happened the day before he was indicted for the murders. Let's remember that Murdaugh is pleading not guilty, and that there is also up. Thank you, Mippet. It it's stuck. You're right. There he is. I'm sorry, guys. I did not realize that it didn't click over. But there you go. Yes. That is Paul and Maggie and Alex, and this is Alex recently going up for the bond hearing, on and off. Okay, so hmm, the only other thing to update on, like, or to actually refresh you on, is that yes, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. I didn't realize the screen hadn't changed. I had pushed it, but I was actually off reading instead. But now I think we're all caught up on Alex Murdaugh too for his new charges. And unless there are any question on any of them, it doesn't have to be just on Alex. What I'll do, so that you feel free to ask me on either one. If you just tell me which one you're talking about, I'll just put me up. Okay. Um, I'm gonna go. You're welcome. And again, I apologize. I do. Um, I'm going back. Mr. and Mrs., you had a question about, I believe this might be about Courtney Clenny because that was up at the time. If they had an abusive relationship, she could easily have manipulated him into forgiving her and not pressing charges if he survived. Her concern may just have been panic at, oh my God, if he dies, I'm yep, I'm up for murder. I think I think that's a good point, and I think that's what some people are looking at, that some of her frustration prior was due to she didn't understand like what was happening and she was hoping that everything would be fine. They had prior skirmishes. It's been said in the building that people heard them fighting a lot. There is elevator footage, camera footage of her actually hitting on him in an elevator quite abusively. Him trying to, like, move away a bit. What you don't see is him turning around and hitting her back at all. You see him getting away. Um, mm, and mm, I'm not so sure. It's hard to say. I mean, for any of us, right? I mean, what would we do? And so, I mean, I don't think any of us would ever be in this situation, but it is kind of like, you wonder, what is a normal reaction? Who gets to say what a normal reaction to hearing that your partner died? Your boyfriend. After you've been in an abusive relationship and after you both have been just that day fighting with each other, physically, hands on, fighting with each other. Um, all that emotion, all that adrenaline, all of that fight or flight. I mean, who's to say what is a normal reaction to that? Yeah. Yes, Liam, more elevator footage. Yes, more elevator footage. Yeah, this is, what I think about this, and this is in regards to Murdoch, correct, Liam? Because fancy growing up thinking you are rich, but finding out that your dad stole all the money. Exactly. He does have a son who's still out there, who has to control family assets and everything right now, and he's got every government agency you could think of coming at everything he owns. I don't even know if he has a house to live in at this point. I'm gonna have to check that out because this child is definitely not of a legacy. I also wanted to tell you something I almost forgot, but the court also ordered that the picture of Alex Murdaugh's grandfather that's hanging in the courtroom where they come for the proceedings to be taken down while this is going on because of the disgrace of Alex. And he was a well-respected judge, and the family is well-respected in the area. We've talked about this before. But the picture of his grandfather has been removed from the courtroom and from the hall of sex as to not sway the jury or anybody else in any direction. I actually applaud that. I'm sure some people are actually offended by it, but not me. I actually think it's the right thing to do. I don't want Alex using his long standing in the community untoward towards that jury. They need to see him for the individual that he is. He's not his grandfather, nor his father, or any of his brothers or cousins or nephews or uncles that were in that business who didn't steal from the lawyer firm or who didn't misappropriate anything or do anything illegal. Um, I don't think he should get the benefit of their good reputations for his misdeeds. Clearly, financially, he could not have 100 charges on him if he was the same as his grandfather. Yeah. And I think he wants to act like it doesn't exist, but you can't let all that financial misdoings go away. They're going to represent him badly in the murder trial. And of course, is now that they are linking them. And also, let's just say how clever the prosecution is making that the motive is. because now we're allowed to talk about all those other charges. That's a hook. That's why I'm following this. I wanted to see if all of that was going to get into the murder. And you know what? They just put it in there, didn't they? By stating that the motive is him trying to avoid that, they're allowed to talk about that. Clever. It does seem silly on the outside that you think he's trying to run away from financial charges by committing a murder. But if it gets that evidence in there, just I'm just saying, I thought it was quite clever. And I'm sure the defense is really upset about it because they're saying it doesn't make any sense and it's silly and we should throw that out. But nope, whether it looks silly or not, it's in now. They're the ones who asked for the motive. They demanded it. I think the prosecution did well by providing it. Well, mm, that to me was quite interesting. I don't know about you guys. All right. So I don't want to go too much longer. If you don't have any other questions, like I said, I will link better for you below. I'm just going to take a minute to. Oh. I thank all of you that were telling me in the chat that it didn't change. If I had been looking at the chat, that would have been very helpful. I apologize. You guys tried to save it. I want to see if I addressed any. Is there anything I didn't address from the prior two that you asked that I didn't see? Well, Kim makes a good point. It takes approximately 23 to 26 pounds to stab an adult in the chest. Yeah, to go through. Yes. I do agree, and that is something that they did testify about about the velocity, the strength that was needed, the what they call the poundage or the whatever they call it when you're the force that is going through with the knife. He was very explicit about it in the bond hearing, and we're speaking on Courtney Clenny. No, yes, Courtney Clenny right now, and we're speaking about the coroner who gave testimony about that and about that injury and saying no, her what she's saying happened couldn't have happened, and that is the main reason that bail was denied. I'm just double checking by going back. So thank you very much for that, Kim. I can always count on you. I could. Okay. I do, except nepotism is a thing. It is, and in South Carolina, and Kim is from that area. She's familiar, uh, with the family. We talk about it often. Um, mm, I do understand. It is measured in joules or newtons. Yes, yes, that's the N newtons. Yes, which kind of correlates to what we're talking about. This is the thrust necessary, the force necessary behind it to make the injury that it was, if I am correct. But that one did come forth in the testimony by the coroner in Courtney Clenny's bail hearing. Okay. And Liam, yes, in the Murdaugh case, nepotism is a thing. It is rampant in South Carolina, in that county. This is a big, prominent family, and he has been a total disgrace. The law firm changed their name. Everybody is kind of like, it's family. He's got brothers, he's got a son still. They're all doing what they can, but like the family has to deal with this whole thing also. But like I said, the court has to keep it kind of even. And that's going to be hard too, because they have many lawyers in the family, many people dealing with other people. I mean, they deal with politicians and lawyers. Like, they are well connected, that family, throughout, and have been for a very long time. This is not like new. This is ingrained in that area. A well-known family, and so is the defense attorney, Hal Fusen. I mean, he actually asked for time from the court because he had to do something political with somebody else. I mean, yeah, but he didn't get it. They're still going forward. This is going to be a trial in January. We're going to be seeing on it. We're going to see what they're going to do about live feeds and this and that. The bond hearings and several of the other hearings have been live. The motion hearings, They haven't been live through the court system. People have had to show up to get recordings and things like that. So I'll have to figure that out. If anybody has any information, please forward it to me. I would greatly appreciate it. Because I do think that this is going to be very interesting to cover, and I do think you may want to see it and chat about it as it's going on. And if we can provide that, we're going to try. Okay. Question from Robski: Ben or Jerry's or Haagen-Dazs? Nom nom nom. Well, way back when, Haagen-Dazs was the thing for vanilla ice cream because their vanilla ice cream actually had vanilla bean in it, and you could see the vanilla bean flecks. So I'd have to say, way back was Haagen-Dazs, but I do applaud Ben and Jerry's because they started as a small creamery and they do mix-ins and odd flavors, and I really inspired by that entrepreneurship, and also by the way that that company from the ground up started to give back to the community and start to try to do things responsibly, and as they grow larger as a big company still tried to do what they could but found it difficult as the company gets bigger and bigger and bigger to keep that grassroots kind of do it for the good of everybody kind of thing. But I think they do try. I really do. And I think it's a great Ben and Jerry's is a great American story of capitalism and entrepreneurship with trying to do a little bit of good. Uh, so for me, right now, Ben and Jerry's. Also, because I like weird stuff and they make some crazy flavors, and I'm into it. Mm. No, the correct answer for vanilla is Haagen-Dazs. For everything else, Ben and Jerry's. That's the correct answer. Okay. And on that, I'm gonna actually close out. One more. Yes, Mr. and Mrs. They're saying she couldn't have thrown that distance to injure him that way. Exactly. Exactly. That's why we don't understand why she's not pleading. But she just did get denied bail. We don't know what's going to come forward. I'm interested to see if there's going to be a plea. Okay. They are available at takeouts, that they have their own stores. They have their own little creamery places. They have take like as takeout, and you can get it like as a cone, or you can get it like, and you can get it in the supermarket too in pints. Like it's great. So it's like good. Yeah. I love that. But yeah, on that, I'm gonna end. I will see you all I'll see you all during the week. Okay. We'll be having more coming up. And I'll definitely be talking to you all soon. Thank you to my moderators. Thank you to everybody in the chat for contributing. Thank you to everybody who's watching on YouTube. And if you're out there, don't forget to like, share, comment on the video. It all helps with the algorithm. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I mean, you are watching. I can tell by the views. So why not like give me the normal? Just so you get the notifications for one. You'll know about all the kinds of things I'm doing. And there are some things coming up that you're not going to really be interested in. I'm very excited about the culture conversations promo that I just put out, that I'm going to be coming forth in January with content on that series that I think you're all going to find quite interesting. In the meantime, I'll check you all later in the week.